Athletes who turn up to compete, they put a bit more effort in. They try to be the best amongst their group. Then there's the athletes who train to win. They train every day, every session, so that they win on match night. And then there are just those very few players who train to dominate. They train so hard that winning is inevitable on race night. And my 3 questions are, what do you want? How badly do you want it? And how much are you willing to suffer? And very often, everything revolves around the first question, what do you want? Because a lot of people are unclear what they want from life. They don't sit down and think through. We are writing our own life story every day, and yet we don't think about it. Who do we want to be? Where do we want to live? What life do we want to lead? When we've finished our life, come to the end of our life and look back, what do we want to say that we've done? So, what do you want is a very powerful question. And then if an athlete says, I want to be the best, Bill, fine. How badly do you want it? Because you've got to pay a price to be the best. The best pay a big price. You've got to work harder, you've got to commit more, you've got to take more responsibility, you've got to deal with more ups and downs. And if we can deal with that question, how much are you willing to suffer? Because I work with gold medal champions, and they suffer every day. They work enormously hard. They sacrifice enormous things in order to get that success.
Have you ever watched your favourite athlete put in yet another breathtaking performance and thought to yourself, how the did they do that? The lazy answers are that these people are geniuses or freaks of nature. Well, that's just plain wrong. Because guess what? Those elite athletes you admire, the ones who make the impossible seem routine, they've tapped into something that's accessible to every single one of us. It's not some magical ability given at birth, it's all about habits. For all of us, up to 40% of everything we do is habitual. And what separates the best from the rest is that they've crafted habits that make them highly effective in their performance domain. First up, let's talk about Kobe Bryant. He was known for working out 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, which included working on his basketball skills, weight training, and track work, all to enhance his performance on the court. Many think of him as the hardest working athlete of all time in a physical sense, but he actually spent just as much time training the mind as he did the body. Once his body was exhausted, Kobe knew that he could still get mental reps in. So what he would do in the breaks between his 3 2-hour workout sessions is just go back to his hotel room, sit on his bed, and spend time visualizing. He would spend hours each day just running through all possibilities. Every shot, pass, and defensive play would be played through hundreds of times in his mind, so that he built up a mental script of how to execute on the court whenever those situations arose. The reason he seemed like this fearless beast on the court was simply because no situation was unfamiliar to him. Fear comes from the unknown, but Kobe knew that in working out his mind on a daily basis, he could eradicate that fear, because every situation he faced on the court was something he had faced 100 times before in his own head.
And I study the minds of great athletes. And one thing I've noticed again and again, and they talk about themselves in this way. So this is not me calling, great athletes crazy. They call themselves that, or like, I'm addicted. Like I have an addictive personality. Like that is part of my formula. But they have this two-sided nature where it's almost two opposite qualities that you wouldn't think could coexist in the same people. Like they've got a screw loose in the sense, not that they're, diagnosed with a mental illness, but that they're unbalanced in some way. And that's where, like, they don't want to win, they need to win. And if you look at the examples, like, where does that come from? It runs really deep in their psychology. Like, how sometimes it's like, sort of hard, genetic hardwiring. Often it's traumatic early life experience, where they just they are going to outwork you. They're going to outsuffer you because they need to, because they can't help it. And so they're a little bit psycho, but at the same time, they have their shit together. And the proper psychological term for it is self-regulation. They're masters at self-regulating, not in every context. Like self-regulation is just how we control our thoughts, feelings, and actions in pursuit of goals. So when are we not doing that, right? But they might not be the best at self-regulating in like romantic relationships, but in the sporting context, they just have an incredible ability to think, feel, and do helpful things in pursuit of winning and to avoid doing harmful things. So
the cold, harsh, honest truth is that elite athletes often only get to where they get to because of putting themselves 100% first. And Tiger Woods has openly admitted this himself in saying, I think every great champion who has ever lived would say, yeah, they're selfish in certain aspects. That's how you got there. Throughout his career, he's cut countless friends, coaches, caddies, and ex-girlfriends from his life in the most brutal fashion. For example, apparently Tiger dumped his high school girlfriend of 3 years through a simple 4-sentence note that basically said that his parents didn't think that she fit into the plan of his career. Now, of course, this is an extreme example, and there are far better and less harsh ways of going about being selfish, but unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. If you think about it, anyone pursuing their dream of becoming the absolute best in their sport has to have their entire life revolve around their training and performances. They'll miss countless family birthdays and other gatherings because it doesn't fit with their schedule. Their parents spend years driving them around to training, meets, competitions, sacrificing all their free time just so their kid gets to pursue their dream. And then once that athlete gets to the top, the selfishness continues. Athletes can get traded or transferred without prior warning, and their entire family has to up sticks and move across the country or to another country because that's where they're playing now. There's no discussion. Everything is done for the sake of the athlete's career. And Tiger Woods is the best example of having that single-minded pursuit. He's been labelled as a very cold and unlikable person, but that's because he's been conditioned to be so focused on himself and his game. Unfortunately, in his case, this has gone to an extreme where it's bled into many different controversies in his personal life. And it's definitely not an excuse, but that's a risk that can come with unchecked selfishness that is allowed to build up over many decades. It might get you to the top, but it's also what can drag you down. So be careful in how you apply and navigate your selfishness. Habit 4 is one that can actually help with that, and it's one that the greatest marathon ever has deployed throughout his entire career. The great Eliud Kipchoge has earned millions of dollars, but still chooses to live an exceptionally humble life in rural Kenya. He's understood that it's imperative as an elite athlete to seek out the best environment. When training for marathons, Kipchoge resides with up to 30 other athletes in basic dormitory rooms, where his daily routine is getting up, running, eating, relaxing, and repeating. He, just like everyone else, will take turns doing the chores of cleaning, washing clothes, and tidying up the camp. Imagine that, the very best athlete in a sport cleaning the toilets that his peers use. And the reason he does this is to stay humble, because running is one of the most humbling sports. And to also just be in a simple routine environment where there are no distractions. We all know stories of athletes who, after a sniff of success or that big first paycheck, will go off the rails. The money, the status, the fame will get to their head and their performances suffer massively. They become a one-hit or one-season wonder because they start giving into the temptations that come with being an elite athlete. But Kipchoge understands that to become an absolute elite and stay there, you have to carve out and put yourself in the best environment possible. You have to go somewhere where all you can do is focus on your craft and where nothing will tempt you away from it. His family lives a short drive away from the camp, but when it's time for training, he says his goodbyes to them and will only see them on Sundays. And the funny thing is, even when he's not training for big races, Kipchoge's life remains as simple and routine as it does in the training camps. He lives on his own small farm where he keeps chickens, cows, and sheep, and his idea of fun on the weekend is driving into the local town to buy animal feed for these animals. And it's this simplicity that ensures Kipchoge can devote 100% of his physical and mental energy to breaking the countless running records that he has.